Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and in this video we're going to be going over some details that came out of a recent interview that Dengeki PlayStation Magazine did with Naoki Yoshida and the CEO of Level 5, who we'll just call Hino, as it says in the title on the Reddit post. We're very familiar with the Level 5 CEO after 2 Yokai Watch events, or the same event being there twice. But anyway, there's just a few details here. Some of the thought process regarding Diadem/Eureka, certain plans they have for certain things in the future, the balance of the content. There's just a few details that I thought was just barely worth making a video for. So let's get started. Before we get started though, Carrier of Light, thank you again. Like I said, I reference a lot of the stuff you post on Reddit because it's awesome stuff and it's awesome translations. So be sure to go to the Reddit post, sources in the description, and give them love. Thank them. Give them Reddit karma, whatever works. I don't know how all that works, but just make sure they're appreciated. So anyway, let's go through the details one by one here. So at first it's just talking about what Yoshi and Hino do when they go to dinner together. They just talk about games. I like nerd dinners. Nerd dinners are excellent. But then that's what they talk about. That's all they talk about. The interesting details, at least for us as players, starts with question number 2. Yoshida wants readers to interpret this in a positive way, which is a great thing to say before you disappoint us. But content like Diadem and Eureka is an experimental chamber involving trial and error. Now, that's a very, and I guess this is why it's bolded, a bold statement to say about these things. When we as players receive content, we're, I guess, not expecting to be the trial and error portion of the game. We're expecting to be the finished product, or to be experiencing the finished product. I wouldn't say Diadem and Eureka, or this statement even says that these two things aren't finished products, but whether or not they'll be successful within our game is and has been, you know, trial and error. I mean, we've had that with Palace of the Dead, we had that with Lords of Verminion, the original Diadem, the Diadem rework. I mean, we've had it with a ton of different things, and it's a matter of content that does work and trial that doesn't work. Now, it could also be referring to the fact that inside the content itself is very trial and error, figuring out how to spawn the notorious monsters, figuring out where the quests are, you know, having very little information and needing to share amongst ourselves to get the correct information out to enough players. It could mean that. It doesn't go into too much detail about what it means by trial and error. I think I can pick out a few things, but those are just my interpretations of what it could possibly mean when he says that that little statement right there. Now, the next Eureka, which, again, this is the second interview, or the second, I guess, instance of being referring to a next Eureka. We all knew it was coming, but it's good to see it consistently mentioned over and over again. Still unnamed, it'll have new gameplay elements such as orders to hunt specific monsters. Now, this was something that I was surprised to not see in the original, and if you've watched my Eureka review, that was one of the elements of gameplay that I fully expected to be added in the future. We've gotten hard confirmation now that that will be one of the things, basically the equivalent of the hunting board, or I guess just a daily quest of some kind that will allow you to do those things. A different method to improve the basic gameplay and leveling process. So that's a little bit harder to tell because hunt specific monsters sounds like, you know, a basic gameplay / leveling process method, but apparently there's another method on top of that in order to, I guess, make it a little bit less of a just kill monsters and train them all together across the zone kind of gameplay process. They said if they had these features from the get-go, it would just turn the usual 14. Now, he said this in the walk with Yoshi-P. And it's always a weird thing because Eureka has its own rule set, but stripping away features to make something not feel the same as the rest of the game isn't the same as, I guess, innovating to some degree. When I play Eureka, I don't necessarily feel like I'm losing aspects of the game. I feel like I'm just abiding by the rules that Eureka has set forth. You know, no other content I've ever been like, well, I should have all these other things like lead quests and hunts, and I've never said that about any other content. But with the way Eureka functions, it's so much like the base game that it only feels like they've just taken away a few features, then added in this Magia board and this Magicite system and the way the NMs spawn. But even still, there's elements that are different, but it does feel mostly like they're just trying to, I guess, create a minimalist aspect to which you can actually approach this content. It's hard for me to put into the exact right words I want. I'm sure some of you could come up with a better way of describing it in the comment section below. Anyway, regarding the game that Level 5 is developing to celebrate the 20th anniversary. Okay, this is something, Level 5, apparently, the guy said that he accidentally blurted out that they were doing something. He wasn't supposed to do that. Nothing is confirmed nor official. They wish to have various sessions with Yoshida in the future and eventually develop a game in that direction. Woo! He wants to work with Yoshida. Now, I'm curious where that actually ends up going. Various sessions with Yoshida in the future, and eventually develop a game in that direction. So, an anniversary game for the 20th anniversary of the Level 5 company. I'm curious where that ends up going. You know, the games that Level 5 develops, none of them are that bad. It's just us and Final Fantasy XIV. We have our experience with Level 5, and it's the Yokai Watch event, and it's oh boy. I won't say much else, but oh boy. They're trying out new things with the Forbidden Land of Eureka. This is the next one. And even outside of Eureka, they have other plans for, quote, trial and error type of new content, unquote, that is already under development, which they still cannot talk about. They'll be announcing it somewhere in the future. So, again, trying out new things, perfectly okay. You know, this is something that people have asked them to do, and they're going to falter in some cases, and they're going to be successful in others. And we've seen that back and forth, like I said earlier. What's more interesting is the even outside of Eureka part, other plans for trial and error type of new content. Now, that to me says that the earlier statement was more about the aspects of Eureka itself, where people went in, I guess, completely clueless and had to falter a few times before they could succeed. Most content kind of works that way at its base. So for them to make specific note of it tells me that while Eureka has developed certain things such as the notorious monster system, you know, the very specific spawn conditions, which kind of already exist in that of the hunt, I'm curious if it's similar to the way Eureka tackles trial and error, or if it's just something that is along the same mentality of that. It's hard to tell, but again, it's good to hear them developing new types of content. It's what people are asking for. Now we just have to have fingers crossed that they're constantly learning and improving and getting a better idea of what will work with the community. It's been a few years, and it still feels like they fall more often than they succeed, but even when they fall, they usually pick it back up if you give them a little bit of time. Those future plans include a powered-up version of current content, also brand new content, where players will say, "What? You were hiding something like this the whole time?" So when I hear powered-up version of current content, I think Deep Dungeon, personally, and I don't necessarily think powered up. I feel like the reason it's in quotes is because I guess it's just the translation, and that translation could really mean a few different things. I don't know how literal it is. Powered up version could just be a new version. It could just be fancy wording for that. And they said there's going to be a lot of new rules and a lot of different ways to approach the next Deep Dungeon that isn't just go up floor by floor by floor and every 10 floors is a boss. They said there will be other ways you could choose to tackle it, and that the more difficult content in Deep Dungeon won't be just based on grinding 150 floors straight from 51 to 200. So curious to see where that goes. And also brand new content where players will say, "What, you were hiding this the whole time?" A while back, they mentioned a never-before-seen type of content that they would be adding. This was mentioned after Eureka, after they had already announced a bunch of stuff that technically could have been that thing. And so I'm curious if that's another reference to what that is. You were hiding something like this the whole time. Oh, man, if you know what? If you had Lords of Verminion, I would have had the same reaction. So I don't know how to feel about that. There's not enough information there for me to really give a full thought analysis on that. But I'm excited. I want to see them taking the time, taking away the extra dungeons, and finding content that they can develop that isn't just more of the norm, which is what people keep asking them to try and do, is figure something out along those lines. I just wish we had a PvE to test it. Just the new features. Just not all the things, just the new features. And then after that, I think it's a lot of fluff. Hino asked Yoshi if he was working on a new MMO, and Yoshi just laughed. He's like, "I'd have to be crazy. We need to clone another one of me." If he was aiming to win in the current market, there's no need to have even more MMOs. And he's already looking forward to... Hino said he built a new PC, and he hopes for a Final Fantasy XIV too. He's looking forward to the next expansion, but wishes he had a fresh playground where everything is brand new. And they said, if you want that, you need to clone me. So just some fun little details here, and it's always nice to get more info on Eureka. I feel like the turnover of the way they've interpreted our feedback has, while not all conclusive, we've seen sprinklings that they are indeed listening and they are picking up what people are saying about it and the way people are approaching it. And it's a good thing to be able to see that and to have these interviews and the Yoshi-P walks things coming right after Eureka's launch. I'm really happy to be seeing these things, and I hope going forward, we can just improve upon what Eureka is currently. You either love it or hate it, but all the same, everything can always be made better. So that's where my optimism is, and I'm going to call it optimism and not a positive, not necessarily that I believe it will turn out that way. But anyway, thanks for watching this video. Be sure to check out the source again in the description. Like, favorite, subscribe, and share, as I always say. And I will see all of you in the next video. Until then, take care.